episode 6, does that mean that nobody can actually see like him transform? Like, is he the only one that is able to see the transformation? I want to thank you all for the love on the Dana Dan videos I've done thus far. We have 2,000, 1.6 thousand, 1,582, 530. These are numbers that I never really expected to have or have the amount of people listening to my videos, especially around this anime. And we're going to be talking about Dan episode 6 today in today's video. So I'm excited to jump right on into that video. I never thought about Momo as being cute because when we see Okuran walk into this scene right here, he's walking in the classroom. This dude that we've never actually even been introduced to at all in the first place, he ends up coming up to Okuran and he's just like, hey, are you going out with Momo? And he's just like, wait, what do you mean? Like, am I going out with Momo? Oh, no, I'm not dating her. And he's just like, oh, okay, well, that's kind of cool. And there's these other dudes that we never actually got to see either beforehand. And it's just like, oh, is that right? I see. Then can you introduce us? And this is the messed up part, you guys, is like whenever you seem to get with a woman and there's this other dude that comes around, it's like, oh, hey, can you introduce us? And it's just like, we don't even know that this guy is friends with him. And from what we've seen from these previous episodes as well, is Okuran has never really been friends with him or had any other friends until Momo came along. So it's like this random dude is just like, hey, can you introduce me to this other girl that like I want to be introduced to? And it's just like, that's not the right way to go about it. Not by any means. It's just like, if you're actually friends with this person, then yeah, sure, like introduce them. But this person has never known him to begin with in the first place. And it's just something that he never really recognized or understood at all. It's just like, now this guy's just trying to get with Momo, and I'll touch on that why in a second. But it's just like, Momo's super cute, and this is something that Okuran had never even thought about in the first place. So it's like, I've been wanting to get to know her for a while. It's just like, why didn't you go up and talk to her in the first place then? Like, if you're really wanting to get to know her, like, you should have the balls, especially if you're able to come up and talk to him, you should have the balls to go up and talk to the girl that you want to talk to in the first place. But he's like, no, I'm going to talk to Okuran because it's going to be easier for me to do that. It's just going to be easier for me to pick on this little nerdy dude that has glasses that doesn't seem like he'd be very strong, but it's just like, he is very strong. And this is something that, like, Okuran kind of notices. The only thing he's really paying attention to is like, oh, Momo is super cute. And that's where he's just like, Miss Aya is cute? Like, what? I never even thought about that. And that's where, like, you see his head perk up, and he's just like, let me think about that. And it just goes to this, like, little flashback of all this other times that they've been through together of, like, oh, I never even considered that she was that. He was just glad that he could have a friend. Like, I was just happy I made my first friend. So that's why when this other dude comes in and he's just like, oh, yeah, I'm going to be friends with Momo. She's like, no, that shit doesn't work. He was just always thinking about her as a friend. He didn't think about her in any romantic way. And that's something that I've been told a lot as well, too, from, like, people that I talk with where they're like, hey, if you want to get in a relationship with somebody, I'm like, how do you get, like, into the relationship? And they're like, well, typically we were friends first and we just got along, and then somehow I just, like, knew that this was the girl that I wanted to marry or that I wanted to date. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess I never really thought about it that way. So it's just like, this is how a lot of relationships, from what I've been able to see and from the people that I've talked with, are able to transpire in a different way. It's just like, just go out and become friends with them. Don't have any intentions of trying to sleep with them. And this is the part that I was going to touch on, because that's what ends up happening is, like, the dude over here that we see right here, he ends up, like, saying that there's this rumor that goes around, and he just wanted to see if it was actually true, which is messed up that that's the case at all in the first place, and I'm going to get there here, so just bear with me. So that's where he ends up, like, swiping back that other screen, which is fun, like, within his own mind. He's like, you know what, no, I can't think about that, about her being cool. It's just like, no, wait, Momo's just my friend, and he ends up, like, beating himself up, and it's just like, thinking she's cute is bad. That's impure, which it isn't really. Like, you don't have to think about your friends, like, in that way, unless, like, that is the way that you want to think about your friend. And this is probably the hardest part and thing to understand and realize, especially when it comes down to, like, relationships or when it comes down to friendships, is sometimes we can have, like, mixed feelings for the friends that we're friends with, but it's just like, that doesn't necessarily mean that they mean the things that you think that they mean all the time. Sometimes their minds will just play tricks on us, and sometimes it can be confusing as, like, a man or as a woman to be like, oh, okay, am I actually, like, romantically involved with this person, or do I just, like, love this person in, like, a platonic way? Like, which way am I actually loving this person? And only you can be the one that decides that, which is another thing that I'm going to be touching on a little bit later around how our perception creates our reality. So it's like you guys have, like, done it, right? And that's what I'm saying. Like, this is where Okuran gets, like, all upset and pissed off, and his, like, mood changes from, like, him beating himself up to being like, rumors say she'll sleep with anyone. And that's where he's just like, who'd say such a thing? And this is where, like, I love this scene right here, because, like, this is where he ends up, like, standing up for Momo, basically. And it's just like, who'd say such a thing? Don't know, but it's true, right? And that's where he's like, he's getting all upset. He's like, come on, please. And you see like his anger starting to flare up. And we talked about that in the last episode when like he was in the closet with, or I guess the pantry it was, when he was in the pantry with Turbo Granny and he gets all upset when she's telling him to like kill his bitches and everything like that. And then he ends up transforming. So it's like, who's spreading these rumors? And he asks that straight up to him, and he grabs on, what's going on here? He seems very weak, like he isn't able to do anything. And yet his friends like start to jump into the scene that you see right here, which is a little interesting to me because I'm curious about this said thing. So he's getting a little freaked out. He's a little nervous. It's like, you want to fight? And he's just like, yeah, sure, we can fight. But as soon as he says that you want to fight, that's when Okuran transforms. And I ask, who was spreading such rumors? Because he doesn't want to have anybody spreading such rumors. And this is the part that I'm curious about. So like when he transforms right here, is he able to see the transformation happen? Or is he just seeing like Okuran being strong and like just strong basically? Because if we go back to episode 4 right over here, is what you see is like when they're running through the streets, what you see is like, what's that? He's totally giving a piggyback. Like he's totally giving a piggyback to that ride. There's a ton of facts crap. There's a lot of people here too. What's that? He's totally giving a piggyback ride. What dedication, so hilarious. And that's where it's just like, this is totally embarrassing. No way nobody else can see the crab. Hold on a second. That means we just look like we're all in on a chicken fight. And that's where I'm just like, if nobody else can see the crab, so it's just like, she hopes she doesn't bump into her friends because they aren't able to see what she sees right here. So I'm wondering the same thing, like when we go back to this episode 6, does that mean that nobody can actually see like him transform? Like, is he the only one that is able to see the transformation? From what I believe and what I've been able to pick up so far, I would say yes. He doesn't see what we're seeing right now. Like he doesn't see the audience. We don't see like it from his perspective. We see it from Okuran's perspective, not from this guy's perspective. All this guy's perspective is seeing like Okuran as like his normal nerdy self. So it's like, what are you talking about? Like that can't be the case. But it's just like from what we see from the previous episode, from episode 4, that's exactly what it's saying, is that we can't see what he can see. He can only see the spiritual powers, and Turbo Granny touches on that a little bit later as well too, which I'll touch on here in a little bit. But it's just like, I'll actually touch on it now just for you guys, just to save you a little bit of time, because that's another thing that we're going to touch on a little bit later. But basically at this scene right here is where Turbo Granny says, however, if a human picked it up, it might awaken their spiritual powers. And depending on, if the human picks it up and it's right here, and depending on the person, allows them to see spirits. The fact they can see spirits means the spirit can see them too, which there's the danger that they might get attacked. So that's why I say, like, later in the series, was him, the little bully guy, able to see Okuran's transformation? I don't believe he was, from the facts that we've been able to gather thus far. And that's why, like, when he walks away, he's like, oh, I'm sorry, like, nothing actually happened here. Nothing's really going on. There's nothing to see. And he ends up just putting his bag down, acting like perfectly normal, taking out his little books, and then he starts to freak out, and he's like, calm down, and like that's when he sees Turbo Granny for the first time. And that's where I'm just like, so I want to hear what you guys think. Like, is the bully kid, able to see Okuran's transformation, or is that something that only Okuran and us as the audience were able to see? Let me know your thoughts down in the description down below. So the next part is like, anyway, I can see her saying like, you aren't in trouble. The power is way too heavy of a burden for you. And this is where Turbo Granny and the words that people say to you are going to be very important, because like if you're able to be easily persuaded or manipulated, or you're unaware of like how these strategies and tactics work, this is something that like very well could have confused Okuran and was like, yeah, I'll give you back my powers because it's too powerful for you. And that's why Turbo Granny is like, the power is way too heavy of a burden for you. You should let me inside your body once more. And she ends up coming in and like all smiley and grummy and things like that. It's like, don't worry, I'll leave as soon as I regain my power. But she can't even do that. I don't know how she would do that, because her consciousness is stuck in the fortune cat, which brings in more fortune, which we'll talk about that a little bit later as well. And I know I'm saying as well a lot because I'm trying to get people to watch a little bit longer. So if you're still watching, I appreciate you. It's a really simple process. And it's just like, give it back. She doesn't even know how the process works. She has no idea how the process works. So it's just like, that's why Okuran is like, give me a break. You return my balls first, and then we'll talk. I won't fall for slick talk like that. And then as soon as that happens, he shoves her back in the bag. Momo ends up coming up and talking to her. But like, maybe there's been people in your life at this point in time that have like said certain things to you, or maybe there's been marketing things that have like advertisements that you see on like Facebook or YouTube. Like, I don't know if you have YouTube Premium or if you don't have YouTube Premium, but there's probably an ad that started before this said video ended up starting. And that ad was trying to persuade you or influence you to do something, purchase something, or buy something, which I do that as well too. Like when I either ask for a subscription or ask for you to like click the link down below, I try to do it in a little bit different manner than probably a lot of other people do out there. But nonetheless, like being able to know and understand how these words and phrases and things are being conveyed is one of the best ways to do it. And there's also 333 on the timer, which if that means anything to any of you, that is a good thing to have being said right now. So she ends up trying to say, like Okarun ends up trying to tell Momo that like Turbo Granny's in the bag. She doesn't really think anything of it. She's just like, why do you drop that? And that's where he's just like, Momo is super cute. And he gets all nervous and like he just starts to walk away. Why are you shying away from me? He's like, I don't know. I'm just shying away from you. I can't really think about it, not what you think. And then look at me, hold on. And then they just start running and chasing after one another. It's like, it's not what you think. Okay, you punk ass, why? And then they just keep going around all over campus. And then it goes back to them being in class. And it's like, Momo, why are you so mad? Something happened to your bae? And she's like, for some reason, he's totally avoiding me. She doesn't even acknowledge that in the first place. She says it afterwards. I'm seriously pissed, and he ain't my boyfriend either, is what she ends up saying. But he's a good guy. That came out of nowhere. What you talking about? I heard from someone in Class C, Okarun got into a fight with boys who were mouthing you. And she's like, what? Seems someone is spreading nasty rumors about you, which is fantastic that like Okarun had the ability and the strength to be able to stand up for the girl when she wasn't even there. And this is what you have to do with your partner as well too, is like be able to stand the ground when somebody's bad-mouthing them. And you can do this with your friends, you can do this with your family members, you can do this with anybody else that's around you. Like if somebody's talking shit or like throwing shade at somebody else that's not actually there, you got to be the one that stands up. You have to be the one that like says like, no, that's not that person. Or like, well, hey, have you thought about it from this perspective? Like, have you ever actually talked to this person about this said thing? Like, do they know that you're saying these things? Because a lot of the times people will talk things about other people instead of actually talking to them about themselves, which to me, I've never really understood that. People like talking about people more than they like talking about ideas, which is why I change it. And the mirror here, and when I say change it, I mean like change the perspective and start talking about ideas or shows or concepts. Stop talking about like what people are doing and how they aren't behaving in the right way or how you wish that things would be different, because you can't change other people. The only person that you ever have to change yourself. And that's what we're going to touch on right here, and why this mirror scene is going to be very important. Because at first I thought that like this mirror was showing because like her friend wanted to see like how Momo would react as she's like heard, as she was telling her about how I heard that Okarun got pissed about that, and how she like perks up about like, oh, maybe there is some relationship there. Maybe like he does actually like me. Maybe he does feel a certain way. And that's why she gets all confused of like, why is he avoiding me? She can't necessarily understand that from the point of view that she's in right now. But her friend wanted to check on the mirror, but I thought that it was because she wanted to see the body language. But that's not what it is at all, not by any means, because what it actually is what we'll see in this next scene right here with her. So like her reality is a direct reflection of what she's telling to herself, just as like the mirror is a reflection of the reality that you see yourself. So like this is the actual, like your reality is only ever a perception of your thoughts, your ideas, and your beliefs that you hold within yourself. This is just a fact of life. I challenge you to test it. I've tested it myself multiple times. And whenever I feel a certain way or I start saying these different words, such as like I am statements, like I am just too pretty, everyone's eyes are glued to me when I'm just walking down the hall. Another one right here, and I'm not just cute. I even greet the local blockheads with a smile. And like, as you see, like everybody's just like looking at her because what she's saying on the inside, she believes to be true. So by believing that she says a pretty girl, but it's like that a pretty girl likes them can help them live another day, which that's a little bit too extreme in my personal opinion. But like, if that's the things that you're wanting to talk about yourself and how you can boost yourself up, then by all means, because this is how your world will start to reflect back to you. When you start to talk about like positive good things in your life, then you'll start to see those positive good things reflected back to you in a way that they weren't reflected back to you in the first place. And to me, that's just like, that's incredible. That's insane. That's how the world works. Like if you just start to say like, oh, I am wealthy, or I am successful, or I am proud, or I am in a new relationship, or I am happy, or I am joyful, or I am healthy, or I am fit. You say that over and over and over again, and you act upon those things and act as if you are that said person, then you will start to become those persons. And a lot of the times, maybe you're in your life right now, you don't say like the more positive things, you talk about more like the negative things, which is things that I highly recommend you don't do. I recommend that you talk more about the positive and less about the negative, because if you talk more about the positive, you'll start to see more positive around you. Like all the conversations that I have with people, either they're very positive and beneficial, or I'm there to help them look at the world in a different way. Like that's 99% of the conversations that I have. There are some weird anomalies that end up coming in to my life from time to time, but those are also opportunities for me to show that I have changed, that I have stepped up, that I can stand up for myself, and I can stand up for these beliefs that I have put into my new psyche to be able to become the type of person that I want to become. And if I can do it, you can do it as well too, because I was at this place, I was not at this place last year, I was not at this place 4 years ago, I was not at this place 6 months ago. So if I can do this in 6 months, if I can do this in a year, if I can do this in 4 years, you can do it as well too. You just have to take the conscious effort of being able to be like, okay, I am this type of person, and then just start to act as you are that type of person. It's like, I am a successful YouTuber. I am somebody that is confident. I am somebody that is convicted. I am somebody that is hardworking. I am somebody that is diligent. I am somebody that is resolved. I am somebody that is ethical. I'm somebody that is inspirational. And you just keep saying those things over and over and over again to yourself, and something magical is bound to happen. You don't want to, however, go in and be somebody that's like, yeah, I wanted to get back at the bitch that ended up like stabbing her in the back, because like that's not what like a person that is like having somebody that is really pretty and has their eyes glued to them. Like that's contradicting the thing that she ended up wanting to be. So this is something that you want to avoid yourself as well too, is like you don't want to have to get back into the bitch and try to spread these rumors about like how she's a slut. That's just not the right thing that like a pretty girl or a pretty person would do. At least maybe pretty people will. I don't know how pretty people work. Like that's just not my expertise. I understand that a lot of them have pretty privilege and things like that, but other than that, like you don't have to be spreading rumors to other people. And that's why like within this scene where she's like, she's a demon, and this is where people will think a lot after some said event ended up happening. That's at least something that I've recognized and realized within myself. Like we always want to improve. We want to get better in some way, shape, or form. So it's like you have to constantly be talking and thinking good thoughts about yourself and about others, because every good thought and negative thought that you say or think does end up coming back to bite you in a karmatic way. So like you never know the thoughts or ideas that I'm thinking. I never know the thoughts or ideas that you're thinking until we start to verbalize them, until we start to share them. But even at that point in time, like when we're falling asleep at night, or we're just staying alone, or we're just maybe on our phone, or we're watching a movie, like if you're unaware of the thoughts that are happening in your head, then those things are just going to start to manifest and create your reality in the way that either you want it to, or in the way that you don't want it to. And if you want to figure out how you can like change your reality and start to have different thoughts, something that I have done myself personally, grab a sheet of paper, write down the things that you think are true about yourself, question every single one on whether or not, okay, is this true? Is this a fact? Is this something that I myself have experienced, or is this something that somebody else has told me? You do that over and over and over again, and you'll start to actually get to the root of who you truly are. Highly recommend you doing that, because you don't want to be just stuck in your head thinking about like all these hunches and all these different things that you have going on. What you really want to do is like go out and have the conversations with these people to figure out like what is going on. Like, is this person actually a demon, or are they like a really kind, compassionate person that's here to help me? Like we always seem to project our own thoughts and fears onto these other people, instead of actually going into our own self and looking at ourselves from an objective and subjective perspective. Something else that can help out with this as well too, that she very well could do, is like go out and have a conversation with somebody else, or like ask her friends like, hey, I'm just curious, like, how do you see these things that I don't see? Or like, how are things going with you? Or like, are things working out? Like, what do you think I can improve on? And that's why your friends seem kind of like ashamed and like down on ourselves. So it's like, what you're trying to do is kind of strange. Like they had at least acknowledge that to her, but then like, hold on a second, she's not really paying attention. And she's like, there's a woman in the red dress. And this is something that only she can see, because as I was talking about earlier, Turbo Granny ended up telling her about like, if somebody held the ball, it would awaken their spiritual powers, which then by doing so would allow for the spirit to see them, along with her being able to see the spirit as well. And I was curious too about this. Like it does look like the cross does have the little line there. So that isn't something that wasn't like there in the first place. So good to the animators for doing that. They do have a small section though over here where small little aside though, I like how Okarun's still not even looking at Momo and trying to figure out like what's going on. She didn't even notice that Turbo Granny was there either, but yes, she is, and they ended up just like having this little bickering fight. But nonetheless, what ends up happening here is where the animators, like they did a good job at that other spot, but like if you look at this spot, like why is the bag hung like that? Like it just doesn't make sense. And yet like when we zoom in and go to the next spot, the bag is hung the right way, and yet after the second spot, it's not hung the right way. And I'm also curious too, like, do you think that Okuran can feel like her like just fondling his nut like that, like with the subtle sense and touch that she's doing right there? Because if that is, like, hey, more power to my guy, you know? Like, think about that. Like, she's all up and on that ball right now. It's pretty great. But yeah, there's this other thing that I had noticed too within the episode. So like whenever they're talking normally, so this girl is the one who I dropped the wash bucket on, so like that's not her talking normally. And as you can see, like they're slightly italicized, whereas like when they're normally talking and they aren't thinking, the words are normal compared to like when they're thinking, the words are italicized. Just a small little thing that I want to share with you. Wasn't something that I had picked up on beforehand. It's also kind of messed up. Well, I guess not really messed up, but Momo's intuition and her ability to like see things, her foresight is incredible, because like when the crosses get on her face, it's like it stinks, it smells oily. What is that? When I first heard this was my perception and perspective. I was like, oh, that just means that like she put some holy water on it. I don't know why that's what I thought first, but like when I think crosses, I just think somebody's putting holy water on it to like remove demons. So like that was my first go-to thing. But what she actually noticed was like that her skin, and like this wasn't like a normal cross, and she found out that it was lighter, which ended up saving her later. It's just crazy too to me how Momo just like basically throws these two women just like into like the rubble, like without any care consideration at all of like what damage she could do to them. And that's why it's just like when she ends up throwing the ball, and it's just like, this is my little ball, it's the family jewel. It's like, no, that's Okuran's, yada yada yada. They end up running through. It's just like, this is actually the strange woman. It wasn't her, this was a strange woman. I always love how they change like the colors to the scenes. And yeah, I mean, that's basically all I really have. There's another clip that I want to share with you as well too. Like this small little section is like, how many memories do you have within your mind that you're trying to figure out, like that you just think on and they hold on to? Like, what is one of your most precious memories? Because that could also help you out in your life if you're wanting to come through. This section as well too, where Momo says like, my hands are tied, so I can't control it in the way that I want to. And yes, she's able to control it in some way, but that's where I say like, if she's a spirit hand, she doesn't really have to control the hand because like it's just within her own mind's eye. And yet she thinks that her hands are tied, but her hands aren't actually tied. And that's why when she ends up getting tossed in to the little monster looking lady and has her little like run around, which it's crazy to see how like she just beats up Momo like none other and then ends up swallowing her. Kat says like, this is good fortune. Things are going very well for them. Ends up busting in flames because like fortune becomes inevitable because I'm here. They end up coming through, finds out that it's a lighter, thanks to Momo's foresight, and being too reckless. So it's just like, then they get eaten, and don't preach to me, and then rescue mission successful, and that's where the credits roll right there. So it's a fun little shot, it's a fun little scene. Like how the cat ends up, like Turbo Granny ends up standing right there. Chill little graphic and design. But yeah, that would be my whole video and thoughts on this episode so far. So my big thing is like, can Okuran see? Like, can the bully see Okuran? What words are you saying to yourself? Number 2. And then like, what projections are you seeing in the world? And how would you like to change the reflection that you're seeing right now? Wonderful. If you enjoyed the video and you made it to the end, subscribe to the channel if you aren't already. Click the like and or share buttons. Share this with like your Discord group, maybe on your WhatsApp. Let's actually make these videos like pop off in some new way that they haven't popped off beforehand. And with that being said, like I said at the beginning, I do appreciate each and every single one of you, and I'll talk with you in tomorrow's video if I end up doing one. Feel like I will. It'll most likely be episode 7 of Dan to Dan. If not, then we might come up with something else. But other than that, chat with you tomorrow.